Welcome back to Fireside Giants. My name is Alex with my co-host here, Anthony Rivardo. As you can see, he's back healthy and ready to go. He did not contract the vid. He's just a baby with a cold. They call it a man cold for a reason. And, he's doing well, though. We're back at it, talking Giants and whatnot. And I'm really excited, because we're going to talk about Leonard Williams today, kind of what is going on around his situation with the contract, the negotiations, and what's, to happen in the near future with him, and if they're going to extend him, the franchise tag's an option, or if they just let him walk. There's a bunch of different options for him. But before we dive into things, Anthony, how are you doing, my friend?
Well, I'm doing a lot better now that I know I don't have COVID-19. I'm feeling a lot better after learning that. It took me like 3 hours to get a rapid COVID test yesterday. As you can hear in my voice, I'm still a little scratchy. I still have a sore throat, still have a cough. But I guess it's just a head cold. There's no COVID. I never lost my sense of smell or taste. So I didn't think it was COVID, but I didn't know what was going on. I just better safe than sorry. Would have been able to record yesterday if it didn't take me 3 hours to get that freaking COVID test. It was ridiculous, but that's neither here nor there. Let's talk about Big Cat Williams, Leonard Williams, Mr. 11.5 sacks in 2020. I'm excited to discuss him, the potential, avenues that the Giants can take with him this offseason as he is once again an impending free agent. So what will they do? I'll give my take on what I think they should do. Alex will give his, and we'll try and lay out every possible scenario for Leonard Williams. And hopefully all of you listening or watching on YouTube can give us your opinions and your takes on what we should do with Leonard Williams in the comment section on YouTube down below.
Yep, and before we dive into Leonard Williams, I just want to address one crazy thing I saw yesterday. I'm going to put the video in on YouTube. But I don't know if you guys saw Tom Brady's drunk ass throwing the Lombardi trophy like 10 feet across the water to another boat. That is like the most OG move I've ever seen anyone do.
That was the coolest thing I've ever seen in my life.
Like, the guy really, he has 7 of them already. He's like, screw it, I'm drunk. I heard he ordered almost $3,500 worth of Taco Bell for his teammates. That's boss status. Yeah, I heard that. And, like, he really slings, like, spirals this trophy. And this thing is, like, not a light thing. It's, like, metal. He freaking tosses this thing like a Frisbee. And you can hear his daughter in the background, "Daddy, no!" He's like, screw it. Launches the Lombardi trophy. Imagine the NFL sitting there like, that thing's worth a lot of money, bro. Like, you shouldn't do that. He's like, I'll scoop it down there and get it myself.
Imagine if it dropped into the water.
Oh my God, that would be legendary.
But in that marina.
But of course, even in his drunk, inebriated state, he throws a perfect dime Lombardi pass to another boat. Like what the hell, man? Like, I just want to see Daniel Jones playing flip cop hammered after a Super Bowl, let alone throwing Lombardi trophies in the water. Like, that's just hilarious.
Move, man.
Totally. I was crying, laughing when I saw that. It was hilarious. I'll put the video on the YouTube, as I said, so you guys can check it out. It's really funny. But back to Leonard Williams, the most important topic of the day. Leonard Williams is a player that is essential to the Giants' defense, as we know. Reports just came out. They're actively trying to resign him. This is what we expected all along. We didn't need a report to tell us that they were going to be trying to keep him. Patrick Graham was in the running for a couple head coaching positions, and he made it known that his dream job was defensive coordinator for the Giants. He's here to stay. He even signed an extension, and I'm sure that was predicated on the idea that his defense would remain mostly the same. And Leonard Williams played such a big part in how successful his unit did perform in 2020. Like Anthony mentioned, the 11.5 sacks. He finished with 57 combined tackles, 30 quarterback hits, 14 tackles for a loss. He ranked 5th in PRP, which is a statistic formulated by PFF. Basically, the formula is combined sacks, hits, and hurries relative to how many times they rush the passer. So he's a really good success rate when rushing the passer. He's dominant in that category. He is a staple for this defense, and letting him go would be a really big deal, and you can't really replace his production unless you go out and find a 3 technique that you think is going to be able to rush the passer at a high level, and then you go out and sign an elite outside linebacker. You might as well just retain him. But we're going to talk about 3 different avenues for the Giants this offseason period with Leonard Williams, and basically they are they going to resign him to a multi-year deal, franchise tag him, or are they going to let him walk? Those are the 3 only options that they really have. But Anthony, what is your take? What do you think that they're going to do? And what do you think the Giants, should do based on their cap situation? Because they only have a minimal amount of space to work with right now.
Yeah, what I think they should do is what I think that they will do. I think that they will re-sign Leonard Williams to a long-term extension. Now, that might make it really difficult to sign guys like Dalvin Tomlinson and free agents like Kenny Galladay, like we all want, or it'll really pinch the cap space even tighter, right? But it's worth it. Look at the impact that Leonard Williams had on this team in his first full season with the Giants. It was, extreme to see the way that he opened things up for Dexter Lawrence to get 4 sacks and open things up for Dalvin Tomlinson to continue to play well in the run defense and get 3.5 sacks himself. He really opened things up for the rest of the defensive linemen. Having that force, having that true interior pass rusher, which is what Leonard Williams truly is. When we always talk about the Giants and we say they need help on the pass rushing, right? We need more edge rushers. We need a better edge rusher. Well, not necessarily if your interior defensive line is so freaking good, right? If you have such a great pass rush coming from the interior, you can afford to not invest as much on the edge and get by with guys like Carter Coughlin, Cam Brown, Lorenzo Carter, and O'Shane Ximines. You can afford to get by with those guys when you have beastly pass rushers from the interior like Leonard Williams, like Dexter Lawrence, and hopefully Dalvin Tomlinson will come back and do the same. If Dalvin Tomlinson walks, I think the best way to replace him would be through the draft. Wink, wink, Alex, right? Alan McNeil, right? But Leonard Williams, to me, he was the best player on the defense last year, arguably. You could say maybe Bradbury. You could say maybe Martinez or Logan Ryan. But Leonard Williams probably had the most impact because of what he did in both the run game and in terms of the pass rush as well, and how him being in the lineup really affected the other 2 interior defensive linemen and really allowed all 3 of them just to combine to a great season. And all of them had statistically phenomenal seasons and all had really highly graded seasons. They all played really well. And I don't think that the production would have been matched by Dalvin and Dexter if it wasn't for Leonard Williams being in the lineup. So I think that keeping that continuity together next year, re-signing both Leonard Williams and Dalvin Tomlinson, that should be the main goal for the Giants. Keep that continuity going. Allow these guys, they're really good friends as we can tell, to keep growing together, keep playing together, and that's what's really the baseline of this defense. That's what holds the Patrick Graham defense together, that interior pressure. It was huge for the Giants in 2020, and if they're able to re-sign both of those guys, it'll be huge for them in 2021, 22, 23, and beyond.
Yeah, I mean, that really is it. The dynamic duo of Dalvin Tomlinson and Leonard Williams is something that I really think the Giants are going to try to retain. It's just going to be difficult because right now they are $-3 million under the cap. Of course, you have the Nate Solder and Golden Tate contracts that they're going to probably let go of. Post June 1st, they'll save about $16, $17 million there. Roll that over to Leonard Williams. They'll tell him, we're going to sign you to a multi-year deal. We have the contract drawn up. All you got to do is dot the X's, cross the I's, the Y's, and that's pretty much it. But when it comes down to it, the Giants don't have an ample amount of cap space to work with, so they're going to have to make some tough decisions, and that really revolves around signing wide receiver, retaining Dalvin Tomlinson, retaining Leonard Williams. Those are the big 3 that comes to mind immediately. But I think the Giants want to build through their defense and utilize the draft to really help their offense, because the first 2 rounds, they could realistically go Jalen Waddle and Pat Freiermuth or Kyle Pitts and Rondale Moore first and second round, overhaul their offense completely, and you have Saquon Barkley, and you retain a top 10 defense with Leonard Williams, and maybe you draft a cornerback in round 3, and you get some guys back. Darnay Holmes kind of finished the season injured. You get Sam Beal back. You create a competition there. Maybe you sign a free agent, a veteran free agent, on a cost-efficient deal. I think that they keep their defense the same. They use their free agency money to keep their defense the same. Maybe they sign a mid-tier wide receiver like Curtis Samuel or Corey Davis, for example. Those guys they'll be expensive, but not as expensive as Kenny Galladay, Juju, or Allen Robinson. They're the second tier really. So that's kind of where my head's at with Leonard Williams and the guys around him. It's going to be hard to retain a lot of them, but as I mentioned before, there are 3 avenues, right, for Leonard Williams: cut, franchise tag, or let walk. I want to address the franchise tag for a second because that's something that people bring up and say, maybe they could franchise tag Leonard Williams again, a second time. Well, that wouldn't be the most efficient move, and I'll tell you why. If they franchise Leonard Williams again, he's due a 120% raise. So pretty much that would make him a $19.35 million cap hit for next season. That would be about 10.7% of the estimated $180 million salary cap projected for 2021. So think about that, $19.35 million on the franchise tag. You might as well multi-year sign him and then backload the deal a little bit so that way you have a little bit of cap flexibility this coming off season. And franchise tagging him just doesn't make sense. And in addition to that, he's going to try and probably make the argument that he's a defensive end. They franchise tag him as a defensive tackle, so it was a lot cheaper than a defensive end this past season. If he says, I have 11.5 sacks, man, like I play 3 tech, I play 4 or 5 tech sometimes. I am a pass rusher. I am a defensive end. He could make that argument very, very easily, and the Giants are going to have to pay him even more. So keep that in mind. They're going to go multi-year deal. They're going to let him walk. It really only boils down to 2 options, and that is, let him walk or multi-year deal. Now, Anthony, if they do let him walk, is there anyone that comes to mind that you could replace him with? Do you think that they look toward the draft as a potential solution if they let him walk, or do you think they go out to free agency and try and, maybe supplement his loss with a premium outside linebacker or another defensive tackle? How do you think that they would go about that if they let him walk in this theoretical scenario?
Well, first I'll touch on the franchise tag thing. I think there's one scenario where the Giants do franchise tag him, and it's a very unlikely scenario. And it's a scenario of a tag and trade. If the Giants do feel like they cannot afford to re-sign Leonard Williams to a long-term extension, so they want to just get rid of him, but not let him just walk for nothing in free agency and wait till next year to get a third-round compensatory pick, they could theoretically put the franchise tag on him and trade him to a team that's willing to, give up some assets right away and then sign him to a long-term extension themselves because they have the cap space. Think like maybe, let's say the Carolina Panthers, for example. Let's say they have a lot of cap space. I actually don't know their cap situation, but let's just say they have a lot of cap space, right? And they want to sign Leonard Williams, but the Giants aren't going to let him walk for nothing. Giants franchise tag him, trade him over to Carolina for a 3rd and a 5th round pick, recoup what we got when we traded for him, right? And then Carolina signs him to a long-term extension. That's a possibility, but that's really the only way I see him getting the franchise tag, because the franchise tag for him, as you mentioned, is going to be over $19 million. That's insane. That's a lot of money. Giants really cannot afford to do that. That's fully guaranteed as well. There's no, some of it's like part of the salary cap. All of that is going on the salary cap. So that is something that the Giants just cannot afford to do right now. They paid him $16 million last year. 19, that's really, really pushing it. I know his average annual is going to be around 17, right? Is that what they're saying? 16, 17, 18, somewhere around there. So that's also going to be tough to get under the salary cap, but it's not going to be fully guaranteed. So it's not going to be a $17 million cap hit. It should be a little less, right? If that's, the theory that we're working with here. So the tag and trade, let's keep that as a possibility. In terms of if he just walks at free agency, well, one thing we can say about that is he's going to get a lot of money, and the Giants will get a 3rd-round pick in 2022, so yay, right? Yeah, kind of not really. But in terms of replacing him, that's where it gets a little more nuanced, right? It gets really interesting because the Giants could kind of change the way the defense works, right? Just build around Dalvin. Say they re-sign Dalvin in this scenario. So get Dalvin back, get Dexter Lawrence back, and then just have B.J. Hill elevate back to the starting role that he played pretty well in his rookie season 2018. 5.5 sacks. He was pretty solid, right? So you could just go with that core there and then take that money, reallocate it on the edge. That's a possibility. You can look at a guy like Hassan Reddick, or you can go for an edge rusher early in the 1st round, right? That's an actual possibility that I could see the Giants rolling with. But like I said earlier, I think that the core of Patrick Graham's defensive scheme comes from the interior defensive line. So I feel like they would have to go back out there and get a new interior defensive lineman, whether that be through the draft or free agency. I think it would most likely be through the draft. There's a really good guy out of Alabama who's going to be a 1st-round pick most likely. Maybe the Giants could snag him in a trade-down scenario. I think his name is Barrymore. I can't remember his name right now, but out of Alabama, really nice prospect. The only interior defensive lineman projected to go in the 1st round this year, which is really interesting. Now we have other guys like Alan McNeil rising up draft boards, probably thanks to me because I mention his name every single time we make a video, and I can't stop mentioning him, right? It's probably like a streak of like 8 videos that I've mentioned Alan McNeil. So, but if we keep talking about the interior defensive line and we talk about the draft, I'm going to bring him up because absolutely, if the Giants let Leonard walk or they let Dalvin walk, Alan McNeil, regardless, should be on their draft board. That guy is a freak, and he fits the scheme perfectly. He would really be a great player. And some people say he might move over to 3-tech when he gets to the NFL. I think he's better as a 1-tech, 0-tech, 1-tech. That's what he played in college, and I think that he'll actually succeed there in the NFL. Some people argue that he might need to move to 3-tech. Maybe that could be your potential Leonard Williams replacement. I think he's more of a Dalvin Tomlinson replacement. But, personally, though, I like B.J. Hill. If they don't re-sign Leonard Williams, I'm okay with making B.J. Hill the starter. I think that there's plenty to work with there. I thought that he played really well in his rookie season and proved to be a starter. He just got buried down the depth chart by us getting someone who's just exponentially better, and that's not his fault. He's still a good player. So I would be comfortable rolling into 2021 with BJ Hill as a starting 3-tech.
Yeah, I mean, look, guys, you've heard Anthony talk about Alan McNeil. People are starting to pick up on it. It's actually insane. Like, PFF, some big companies are starting to say, like, Alan McNeil, he's a guy to keep an eye on him, and you've heard us talk about him over and over and over again for the past couple of weeks. No one even knew who he was. So now it's kind of crazy. Anthony, credit to him for nailing that one on the head. But I really do think if he fell to the third round, he's a guy, and people say, oh, he should move to 3-tech. I don't think it's necessary. He's only an inch smaller and about 5 pounds lighter than Dalvin Tomlinson. He's not much smaller than Dalvin. So I don't think the size is an issue there. He can very much play that nose tackle position right over the 0-tech, just inside shade of the shoulder, or right, inside shade of the guard. He's capable of stopping the run at a high level and exploiting those A gaps. That's what makes him so versatile. In run blocking, he if you ever watch him, I posted a couple clips in previous videos. He always has his head looking over the shoulder, and he's so strong with it at the point of attack. He just shifts offensive linemen, and he's able to disengage and go after the ball carrier. So it's really, really impressive to see how good he is against the run. Now, when you're talking about when he's rushing the passer on passing downs, he can actually exploit those A gaps really, really, really well. And if you have guys like Dalvin Tomlinson and Leonard Williams, or rather Leonard Williams and Dexter Lawrence, to say they let Dalvin Tomlinson go, Dexter Lawrence and Leonard Williams in those B gaps, just drawing double teams from those guards, it really allows guys like Alan McNeil to 1v1 against the center. And that's where you're going to get a lot of success. That's where he's going to be able to penetrate those A gaps against inexperienced centers. Center's a tough position in the league. A lot of teams don't have the best of them. So I think he would be an awesome selection at nose tackle, and he could really dominate for the Giants, especially with great coaching, because they have some fantastic coaches on that defensive unit that can really, really maximize the value of some of these guys. So I really do think there is a question to be asked, though. And Anthony, I'll let you give your take on what I just said.
Well, I just got to say, we're going to have to do an Alan McNeil video really soon. We keep talking about him. We keep mentioning him. And now all these other people are starting to talk about him too. We got to do a video on him. I promise if you haven't watched him yet, you will be blown away. Like, the guy is truly, fun to watch. The fact that he can run on a treadmill and hit 18 miles per hour at 315 pounds is terrifying. Think about that. Think about the size of that man moving as fast as a golf cart moves. That's terrifying. That's literally a golf cart, dude. He's literally like a golf cart. It's crazy.
It's like a little U-Haul.
Yeah. Exactly, dude. So, yeah, we're going to have to make a video about him. A player comparison that we can throw out there for him is Fletcher Cox. That guy usually lines up at the 1-tech. He's a great pass rusher, has a lot of speed, plays for Philadelphia, but really good pass rusher and run defender from the interior defensive line. That's really my player comparison for him. So keep that in mind. But now let's get back to discussing Leonard Williams, since we just, went on and on about Alan McNeil once again, which is why we got to give him his own video soon enough. But, yeah, Leonard Williams, what were you going to say about him, Alex?
So I do have a question that is worth exploring. Okay. And essentially it is, are we confident that if we offer Leonard Williams a multi-year deal, let's say 3 or 4 years, are we confident he's going to be able to replicate the 2020 production every single season? Okay. With Patrick Graham, I do feel as though he will replicate it, but he only posted one really good season that really stands out above the rest. I know, the hidden production is there. He draws double teams, but so does Dexter Lawrence. The hidden production is there. You can get guys that soak up double teams. That's not a big thing to replicate, but it's the sack numbers this past season that really, really stood out to me. Now, if you get rid of Dalvin Tomlinson, does that hurt him so bad? Does that hurt Leonard Williams so bad that, you can't expect him to replicate those numbers again and again and again? He's 26 years old. He's never missed a game. What do you think about that?
I think this is a really good question. I'm pretty sure that we touched on this briefly a couple videos or episodes ago, right? And what I was saying is that the continuity, I did mention earlier in this video, is that the continuity is key. I don't think we see Leonard Williams top 10 sacks, hit double-digit sacks if he's not playing alongside Dalvin Tomlinson and Dexter Lawrence or players equally as good as them, right? I think that it's really important because you just mentioned that hidden production, right? Because when, let's look back at 2019, right? Leonard Williams had a lot of pressures, no sacks. He had 0.5 sacks on the season. But he had a lot of pressures. One of the highest pressure rates in the NFL amongst interior defensive linemen. Leonard Williams owned that. But he wasn't getting sacks. Then he started playing with Dalvin Tomlinson, Dexter Lawrence. And another key aspect of this, James Bradbury, Logan Ryan, Jabril Peppers a good secondary behind him. That extra second that secondary provides him in coverage, I think that's what was allowing him to get those sacks, turning those pressures that he was getting last year into sacks, because he had an extra second where the quarterback was holding the ball, because he was playing with a great secondary behind them, and he was playing with some other great pass rushers on the interior alongside him, where they were pushing the pocket sometimes right into Leonard Williams, and he was getting easy cleanup sacks. So those sack numbers are a little inflated by that, but still they're very impressive, and I think really the key factor is he was playing in a very talented defense. There was talent all around him, and I think that brought the most out of Leonard Williams, and I think he helped bring the most out of everybody else. So I think, when you look at Leonard Williams going into 2021, if they can't re-sign Dalvin, I don't know if he's going to be that dominant near all-pro player that he was this past year, but I think that there's a lot to be said about keeping the continuity on the defensive line. I think it should be a priority to re-sign both Leonard Williams and Dalvin Tomlinson so you can keep them growing and playing together and keep them playing at a high level.
Yeah, and I just keep coming back to this one scenario in my head, I have to tell you guys. If the Giants did go out and draft Micah Parsons at 11, I think you really see a player like Leonard Williams get even better. And the reason is Micah Parsons is what went to college, to Penn State as a pass rusher, not a linebacker. We did a film review with Chris. The guy uses pass rush moves at a elite level. Like, he has a very nice array of pass rush moves, and his hands are so strong. He's so quick to diagnose plays. He's one of the best linebackers prospects I've ever seen. Especially on the film, the way he disengages blockers, the way he attacks the run, the way he just runs through people, he splits double teams, the way he rushes the passer, he can play outside linebacker. If they used him as a stacked OLB right off the bat next to Leonard Williams, I promise you we would see that side of the line have one of the most productive seasons we've seen in a very long time. It just keeps bubbling up into my head because of what the potential really holds there. And, I would be okay if they let go of Leonard Williams, or rather Dalvin Tomlinson, signing a wide receiver, drafting Micah Parsons, drafting Aiden McNeil, and then walking into the sunset. And then just maybe draft a cornerback in round 3 or round 2, depending on where McNeil goes. I would trade up to get McNeil if he was there in the early 3rd. These are just some scenarios that are popping up into my head. But Leonard Williams, I think, is really good at maximizing the players around him. He makes people around him better, but the coaches make Leonard Williams better. So it's really a trickle-down effect that's happening right now, where the coaches are really making Leonard Williams a better player, and Leonard Williams playing at such a high level is making the players around him even better. So you're seeing guys like Dalvin, you're seeing guys like Dexter, you're seeing guys like Blake Martinez, outside linebackers like Carter Coughlin and Jabal Sheard producing. That's very odd. You don't see Jabal Sheard and Carter Coughlin producing very often, but they had some good games, and that's directly a result of those 3 interior defenders and Leonard Williams penetrating the backfield, pushing those quarterbacks out of the pocket right into defenders. That's really what we're looking at here, is flushing quarterbacks out of the pocket and then basically having your guys waiting for them. So I think the value that Leonard Williams does hold is extravagant. It's exponential. They can't afford to lose him. And I think that really is what it comes down to. If the Giants lost him, it would be such a significant blow. It might drop them from a top 10 defense to a top 20 defense, but maybe between 15 and 20 instead of 10 and 15 or 5 and 10. Like, that's how significant losing him is. So, Anthony, before we wrap up this video, I want to hear your projected contract for Leonard Williams. What do you think they offer him? What do you think the money per year looks like? Guarantees, because he has never been injured, so I think they probably feel pretty good about guaranteeing him a lot of money, which might bring down the cap hit a little bit.
3 years, I think, is fair, because it's kind of like he played his first year of a 4-year contract, in my opinion, when he was on the franchise tag. So I think they extend him 3 years, and I think he gets around $18 million per year. So a little under $60 million. I think 3 years, under $60 million, $18 million per year sounds about right to me with Leonard Williams.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, considering he's never been injured, I would probably say that's a good number. $18 million per year, heavily guaranteed. That way, he knows he's getting paid. He knows he's getting his money no matter what. And that way, he feels safe, because a lot of times, like, these guys, NFL players get injured and they lose a lot of money because of it, even if they have big contracts. Their guarantees are so low, you can cut them and they don't get all that money. But if you guarantee him a lot of money, but you keep the cap hit low, it really makes him feel good about it. It makes everyone better, and it really it lowers the cap hit per season too. So what I could see them doing is like you said, 3-year deal, and then really making his cap hit like 10 million next season, and then really pushing it like majority of it to the second year. What do you think about like trying to lower the cap hit this year to push it to year 2 and 3?
Well, I think that's something they're going to have to do, especially with the COVID cap space, right? The cap space is going to drop, they're saying, to about 185 million now, which is a little higher than the 175 that was initially projected. But the cap space is dropping this year, and the Giants don't have a lot of cap space to begin with. So, yeah, I think that's something they have to look at, backloading this contract, lowering the cap hit in year 1 and giving him more money in year 2 and year 3. I think that's something that they not only would want to do, but would absolutely have to do in order to make this contract work.
Yep, I agree. And really, we have so many other needs right now. We have so many other needs. This is going to be a very busy offseason for Kevin Abrams, and I'll tell you why. They're going to have to restructure some of these contracts. I could see them restructuring Blake Martinez's deal, adding another year there. Maybe even restructuring James Bradbury, adding another year and pushing that cap. But he's going to count $17 million against the cap this season. That's a huge number, so I could see them pushing that. They're going to have to cut a bunch of guys, whether it's David Mayo, Levine Toilolo, Cody Core. All these guys have 0 dead cap hits, so they can save a lot of money there. And what else? What other players are that they can restructure? There's probably a couple more. Kevin Zeitler, they can restructure. They can add another year or 2 onto his deal.
They could even look to extend James Bradbury and Blake Martinez an extra year and restructure them.
Yep, that's what I said. Yep.
Yeah, so there's quite a bit that they could do. I mean,
Zeitler, I think, is a good one. Would be okay.
Yeah, I think the Zeitler one is huge in terms of restructuring a contract. I think that even you have to think about potentially extending Jabril Peppers. I think that's something that they could do, and they could alter the cap space in that way, because it seems like he's ready to get that long-term deal. He's definitely deserving of it after this last season that we saw from him. A lot of growth and a huge scheme fit for Patrick Graham. So that's another player I think you could see a restructure.
Yeah, I think the Kevin Zeitler one's a really good point. I could see them restructuring him, maybe adding 2 years to his deal, and then lowering the cap hit significantly, because right now it's going to be about $14.5 million. They'd save about $12 million if they do cut him, but I can see them adding another 2 years. I think he's our best lineman.
Sterling Shepard could get restructured as well.
Sterling Shepard, he's going to count. If they cut him post June 1st, they would save $7 million. If they cut him pre June 1st, they'll save $3 million. So I could totally see that. They won't cut him though. I don't see you. You might as well. I don't get the cutting Sterling Shepard thing. If you're going to cut Sterling Shepard, trade him. Get something back. Some team is going to look at Sterling Shepard and say he's an asset.
That rumor came out of nowhere. It was not fabricated by any legitimate source. It was just a random Twitter account. That's what I believe. That rumor's BS. There's no way that they would cut him. And yes, if they decided to move on from him, they would trade him. That would be the only logical thing to do, because he's probably the most valuable player on our offense minus Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley. Sterling Shepard is, probably worth a third, second-round pick, and we don't have many guys that are worth that anymore. So you're just not going to cut him, okay? He's your best playmaker on offense when Saquon Barkley is injured. You just can't do that.
Yeah, that's facts. You can't cut a guy that's, basically your only red zone threat right now, and you don't have any receivers. If you go out and get Kenny Golladay, if you go out and get somebody, and then you draft maybe Jalen Waddle, you're still missing, a really great short intermediate zone guy, and Sterling Shepard plays on the outside too. I guess you could cut him, and you could put Darius Slay in there or Dante Pettis. That means you have to sign a primo wide receiver like Kenny Golladay or Allen Robinson. You have no choice. But I don't see it happening. I think that they're better off just drafting somebody and getting a mid-level guy like Corey Davis or Curtis Samuel, and then getting Saquon back and then seeing how it rolls. The offensive line still needs a bit of support. I think that Kevin Zeitler is going to stay. I think that Andrew Thomas is going to take a step forward. I think Shane Lemieux will take a step forward. If he, maybe they'll have a position battle at left guard. Nick Gates is cemented. Right tackle still up in the air with Cam Fleming and Matt Parrott. So we're going to see what happens here, guys. Leonard Williams, though, pretty much a guarantee to stay out, in my opinion. If they let him walk, they'd be a huge, huge loss for the defense. And Patrick Graham, we saw what he did with a guy of Williams' quality last year with 11.5 sacks. Just absolute monster. He had one of the top pressure grades. I think he had 62 pressures. One of the top, numbers among defensive tackles in the league. So he's up there in the top of the league at the position. He's no joke. You pay a guy like that, and he's never been injured before. He's always healthy, knock on wood. I'm pretty excited for this upcoming season to see how this team takes a step forward, what pieces we add, and how much better this offense can really get. That's going to be the focal point. But as always, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank God Anthony is doing all right. He doesn't have the vid, just a little man cold. And we will catch you guys on the next video.